Hi, everyone. Here we are again at another Yale School of Art virtual visit. This is our annual admission information session. We're here to tell you a bit about the School of Art, as well as how to apply, what our financial aid looks like, generally give an overview of the programs, and then answer questions that you may have. We have a big group today. We have over 300 people signed up. Many of you are here now. And we're really excited to welcome you, some of you back. If you've been to our virtual visit before, you've heard me give this presentation. I will say it's not going to be terribly different. So you're going to hear some of the same information again, but that's okay. Additionally, every year we change this program up a little bit. We used to do it in person, which was a big heavy lift for our 2 or 3 person team. And then in 2020, we took it online and we've kept it here as just a means to be able to accommodate a wider group of people. Every year we kind of look at what we did the year before and what worked and what didn't. And we are going to be kind of focusing all of our energy on today's presentation. We won't be having supplemental group presentations this year as far as the faculty panel and the student panel. And our academic calendar was such this year that this is actually our last week of classes this week at Yale. Then we go into Thanksgiving week next week, and then we come back and it's finals, final crits, final reviews. So December suddenly became a much busier time for our students and faculty. So just really wanting to be intentional about, respecting their time and everything. When I went back and looked at last year's virtual visits, I really felt that the faculty panel and the student panel they were perfect. They were so good. And so because that information hasn't changed that much, we're going to give you the links to watch those. They're always posted on YouTube. And so we welcome you to view those as well. And that's a little bit about those presentations, our faculty, and then our students in 2 separate groups, talking a bit about their advisement for really putting together an application and a portfolio. So we encourage you to check those out. And, it's been an intense year. We're already here in the middle of November. We hope you're all doing well with whatever you're up to in your respective practices. And we're really excited to hopefully see many of you come through our admission process this year. And we're going to get started in talking a little bit about that. Let's see, I'm trying to advance my slide. Yes, here we go. All right, so the School of Art is located obviously here at Yale University, where I'm coming to you from today. My name is Taryn Wolf. I'm our assistant dean. I manage admission as well as student affairs for the school, and also some academic and curricular planning with our faculty and directors. So I have the best job ever. I love it. And my very, very favorite time of year is admission and seeing all of your work coming in. We love it so much. Our faculty and I and Sara, who you'll meet, we spend so much time really delving into your practices and understanding who you are, and really curating the best cohorts we possibly can to come in and study here and have this experience. Yale University is one of the oldest institutions in the United States. We were founded in 1701. We're located here in New Haven, Connecticut, which is on the shoreline of the East Coast. We are a 2-hour train ride from New York City, and a little bit more than a 2-hour train ride from Boston, Massachusetts. We are right in between, basically. And this is our campus. The university takes over 400 acres of downtown New Haven. We also have a satellite campus in Orange, Connecticut. But these are just some of our main buildings that you may see looking at either the Yale website or any of the places you're learning about the institution. Bottom left here, that's the Beinecke Library, which is incredible. That's our rare books and manuscripts library. And we just get to see Harkness Tower there. And it's a really beautiful, very old campus. So we're situated kind of on the on the edge, the School of Art, near the med school. And the School of Art is the second to the smallest of our professional schools within the university. The smallest is the Jackson Institute for Global Affairs. But just to give you a sense of like where we sit within the greater university, Yale enrolls over 15,000 students and scholars every year. So where there's 14 graduate and professional schools, there's Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, which is the largest, like the main grad school. That's where most of our PhD programs are. And then the professional schools, such as us, art, architecture, divinity, law, medicine, engineering, public health, music, drama. There's many different schools that make up the GNPs. And within our small school, we enroll 122 MFA students every year. And we'll go through that breakdown when we get to our programs. But just to give you kind of a sense of a look inside of some of our buildings, this is the Humanities Quadrangle. This is over on Wall Street by the law school. This is pretty close to Sterling Memorial Library. The campus is just very old, many storied buildings, lots of trees and foliage. This is Hill House, where our president's house and provost house is, as well as our undergraduate admission office, just to give you a sense of space and place. I'm in my office right now at Green Hall, which is one of our main buildings. And the university, Yale University, has so many different resources, many that our students find essential to their research are listed here. We could probably never go through every different facility we have at Yale in an hour and 15 minutes, but the museums and collections are incredible. The Yale University Art Gallery was founded in 1832. It was one of the first collegiate museums. The YCBA, the Yale Center for British Art, opened in 1977, just to give you like a range of time. And then the Haas Family Arts Library is super special to us. That's right across the street. It's specifically an arts and architecture library. This is the Beinecke that I mentioned earlier, the Rare Books and Manuscripts Archive. This is an incredible building. This is the Haas that I mentioned. The really cool thing with the Haas is that the School of Art has our own dedicated librarian. Her name is Tess. She is incredible. She meets with our students, she does studio visits, and then she's kind of like a concierge librarian. She can really help put together a list of books and readings and research opportunities for each individual student based on the work that they're doing and their interests and how they want to grow their practice. So it's one of the things that we offer that's really one of the most exciting. And then this is the YCBA, the Yale University Art Gallery. So just to name a few, we also have the Peabody Museum. There's several museums and libraries right on campus. And so I really do encourage you to check out the general Yale website and learn a bit more about the university and the many things that you can engage with. Yale has a farm, for instance, as well. But zoning into the School of Art, because we only have a little bit of time here today, I'm going to talk a lot about this. We're going to focus this presentation mainly on how to apply for admission and learning about financial aid, and then we'll give kind of a high-level look at the programs. And when I get to those, I'll talk more specifically about the portfolio guidelines and recommendations that we have. So, all right, let's get to it. So this is the building I'm in now. This is called Green Hall, the School of Art's main building. We have 4 programs at the graduate level that are housed within our buildings: graphic design, sculpture, photo, and painting and printmaking. As well as our grad programs, the School of Art also hosts all of the undergraduate teaching for Yale College in the areas of art, graphic design, and computing in the arts. Our main building has our student gallery in it. So this is a 3-level gallery that's 100% dedicated for student exhibition. We also have, right behind our building is Crown Street, and this is our main building for painting and printmaking. So all the studios are in here, as well as our print shop. And then just a little bit less than 2 blocks away is the Edgewood Complex. And this is where we have the fabrication shop, so wood metal, as well as studios for sculpture, and then most of the studios for photography. Some of them are in this building. And graphic design is actually situated in the building that I'm in as well. This is an image of the fabrication shop. And this is just a little map to give you a sense of sort of where we are and a register within the greater campus, but also these main attractions in relation to each other. So we're just a hop, skip, and a jump from the two main art museums. Yeah. So within this building, as I mentioned, is graphic design, the atrium where our students work. This is the pool where the photo students have their crit. Every area has their own dedicated crit space. And we have studio space or desk space for our students, which varies by the program. This is a photo studio. Our photo students share with one other person in their first year, and then they have their own studio second year. Graphic design atrium is like desk space, communal workspace, with a larger area downstairs that you see here. And then students in painting and sculpture have their own studio both years. All right, so we're gonna start with how to apply. So we use Slate, which is an online application interface. Many schools use it. It'll probably look familiar once you get on there. The application is open. We open it in October. And it's just a basic form with all your demographic information, as well as your academic history and work history. So you'll complete that. You'll then submit all these other pieces of the application. So the portfolio, which is, one of the most important, as well as your statement. This is going to be a one-page statement, about 500 words. We don't do a word count, but we really do ask you to stay within that one page. Our faculty committees review so many applications, so you really want to just get to the heart of the matter, the point of what your work is about and what you're looking for in a graduate program within that statement. And I would say that the brevity is the challenge within that, of writing that. The more you boil it down to the essentials, the better it's going to flow within our process. So we also ask for a resume or CV, and this is where you're just going to tell us what you've been doing, whether you're working out after undergrad, whether you're having a couple of shows or doing we really just want to see a snapshot of all of the things you're engaged with, like professionally or within your practice. I think a main misconception here with this is that we're looking for this very extensive showing history or gallery. We're not. We actually just want to have a sense of your activity. There's no right and wrong in the sense of what is on your what's on your CV or your resume, so don't be intimidated by that, really. We also require 3 letters of rec from people who know you. We say in the application that we recommend this be from faculty or from people that are active in the field to which you're applying. But really the key thing here is they know you, they can speak to your practice and your potential for success in a graduate level program like this. That's really the key thing. Also, we do recommend you give them a good amount of lead time so that they will be able to write you a thoughtful letter where all of those things about you can come through. If you give people, a week notice, also our deadline January 5th, so it's during the holidays and people are really busy at that time of year, your letters will read that way. So just think about that, be thoughtful. If you haven't already asked people to write for you, do it today or do it this week. All right, so then we're going to also submit your undergrad transcript, and this can be a student copy right now as an initial applicant. If and when we get to the point where we're asking you to come interview with the faculty, at that time we'll let you know that we're ready for you to submit an official transcript. So you could submit all of this digitally as well through Parchment. There is an application fee of $100 to apply. It does take a lot of work to process and review all of your applications. We don't have a fee waiver. This is also really relevant because we have need blind admission, which means that we don't factor in a student or an applicant's ability to pay or not pay. Like, we don't look at any of that or download your financial information until we know who's admitted. So that all kind of plays into that process there. And then we do not require GREs or general standardized tests from all of our applicants. However, if you're a non-native English speaker who did not attend an English-speaking undergraduate institution for at least 2 years, and that would be like non-ESL instruction, then you would submit a TOEFL or Duolingo or IELTS exam score to us. And that would make up your application. So the application deadline is January 10th. This year, we're giving you a little bit longer and ourselves, but this is going to be on a Saturday or Sunday evening. So just prepare in advance. Usually we're here in the office the day that the applications are due and the phone's ringing off the hook, but we won't be here that day. So please just try to get all of your materials into the system if you're somebody that like will need to ask a lot of questions or will be vexing about certain things, which we hope you won't. We hope that this is all we're going to demystify everything for you and you won't have to panic. Make sure you get those, questions into us the week before so that we can answer them in due time. The application does turn off at midnight our time, so just get in a little ahead of the game. Applicants are notified of preliminary selections in early February. We are going to be rolling out decisions a little bit on a little bit of a different schedule this year. We normally release all of our interview and sort of preliminary decline decisions on one day for all 4 programs. And then the same with admit decisions. With the invitations this year, we're going to be rolling them out on different days. And that has to do with the calendar of reviews and committees that are happening. So we want to get, and the interviews, we like to give you at least 2 weeks notice between the invitation and your interview. So if you know someone that applied to a different program and they heard, don't panic that you didn't. It might be a couple of days or another week until we notify you. All right. But that generally happens beginning of February that we give you the initial decision whether you've been selected for interview. And then interviews happen throughout February. We essentially send you a letter. You'll have a range of dates and times. You just have to click on that link in the letter, pick your interview time. Please look at your diary carefully when you do that because switching around after is a little bit complicated. We'll send you a link. You'll do that on Zoom. You'll meet with the faculty there, and we'll communicate really specific instructions for what to prepare for the interview based on the program that you're being interviewed for. So then if you're interested in applying to more than one area of study, this does happen sometimes, and we don't have a ton of applicants that apply to more than one. Our areas of study are pretty specific, so most applicants sort of know where they sit or what program they're interested in. The question you should ask yourself is like, who do you want to have your crit with? Who do you want to get feedback from? Because we have different faculty in our various areas of study, but there's also some interdisciplinary work too. So some students in the painting and printmaking program are doing work that's like off of the canvas and off of the wall. So graphic design students historically are doing very interdisciplinary work. So really just, I think looking at the faculty, looking at the mission of the program is the best way to decide for yourself where you kind of belong the most if you're an interdisciplinary artist. You can apply to more than one program, but you do have to make a separate application to each of those areas, just a little bit more work. And in the time I've been here, which has been about close to 8 years, we have not admitted someone to 2 programs. We have interviewed like maybe in the time, 2-3 people for 2 programs, but we haven't admitted anybody for 2. So last year for the 2025 admission cycle, just to give you an idea of the numbers, we admitted 7 prelim students in graphic design and 10 MFAs. We admitted 18 painting and printmaking students, 10 in photo, and 10 in sculpture. And we're going to be looking roughly at those same numbers for this current year. So this was last year's number, but that's not going to change much. So with admission, our stats are such that we invite about 15 to 20% of our applicants to interview with our committee. The committees are made up of faculty, us, admission staff, and occasionally alumni will be part of the committee. And we make final decisions together about who we're going to invite to be in the cohort. We plan to extend offers to approximately 56 students for the coming fall. And our average admit rate for first round decisions, it does vary annually. We really hope you will take time to prepare your application. Applying early is fine. Even a day ahead of the deadline is considered early. Remember that we will be here on the 7th, 8th, 9th, but not the 10th. We, again, really encourage you to give your recommenders that lead time. And to know that our committees begin reviewing applications really soon after the deadline. The system, sometimes we've heard from applicants that the system can get a little overburdened right at the moment, like that final submission time. We do see probably more than half of our applicants for a given year submit the application on the last day that it is due. This is not unusual for artists, but just know that if you're really, really pushing it to that midnight mark, you may have a hard time getting everything uploaded. So we encourage you to, get it all in there a little bit ahead of that. And let's see what else. There was something else I was going to say here. Forgot what it was. We'll get to it. And then finalists. So if you're a finalist, that means we're inviting you for an interview with faculty. As I mentioned, those will take place via Zoom for 2026. We make waitlists for all of our programs, and the waitlists are they're not ranked. So we might have anywhere from 4 to 10 people on a wait list, depending on the size of the program. And you're admissible if you're on that wait list, right? We don't waitlist you just because we feel bad saying no. We don't, it's such a difficult decision deciding from that interview group who actually gets invited to join the program. It's very painstaking. But it has a lot to do with really a balanced cohort and thinking about the diversity of everyone's practice and where they're coming from and what they'll contribute to the program as far as the lived experience they're bringing and their education and all of that. Where for instance, we have a very global population here in the School of Art. So if we extend an offer to someone that declines it, and that does happen, then we take a look at who we lost and where the cohort is, and we try to rebalance that by going to the wait list. So it can be difficult to be on the wait list. There are some of you here that I'm sure have been on a wait list before. We really encourage you to apply again if that's the case. We do see previously waitlisted applicants, they're very often acted favorably upon reapplication, though every year is a new year and there can't be any guarantees. And then we also don't have deferment. So the only case that we would defer an admitted student is, for instance, if someone has for instance, a visa challenge, they're having a hard time getting their visa issued or something like this, something beyond your control. So if you're in a case like that and you're admitted and there's some circumstance that really makes it impossible for you to come, you'll just be in touch with us and we'll sort that out as far as looking ahead to a different cycle. The portfolio is probably the most important thing you're going to prepare for this application because it's really where we see your work and what you're excited about and interested in. So we ask for 16 to 20, it depends on the program, 16 images for painting, up to 20 for everything else. So photo, sculpture, and GD. The images that you choose to incorporate in your portfolio should be what you are the most excited about right now. That's my best advice for that. So it's really representing the current direction in your practice. What's the materiality? What's the subject that you're working with? We do recommend that the work be recent, so made within the last 12 to 18 months, the majority of it. We do see sometimes people include some older work, but it's putting together a portfolio for an MFA program. It's not really about showing like the widest range of everything you can do, or that you've worked in all these different disciplines. It's more important to have a cohesive grouping of work that really demonstrates the direction you'll want to go in if you come to Yale. And then we recommend that you show the surrounding space and the ideal viewing context of 3D work. So if you have sculpture, like how does that sculpture work in the space, and how does it occupy the space? With 2D works like paintings, don't digitally crop it down to just the image. We really want to see how it hangs on the wall, or how it exists in space, what the edges look like. That's a really critical part for the committees. So that also shows us that the work is real. It's like physically realized. The time-based work should be grouped last. And I do believe the application defaults to this, but if you are showing video or time-based work, please keep each selection to 2 minutes or less. The committees will not be able to watch it if it's much longer than that. You can also include a link to a longer video, but we may not view that unless you make it to sort of the final round where we're thinking about interviewing you. So one last note about this is work that you either make in collaboration with another person or an artist or designer, or anything you're doing. If you're using any kind of generative AI tools, we really want you to identify this in the comment section. So when you upload your images for your portfolio, there'll be fields like your dimensions and your medium, and you fill that out. This is really important. So if you take like 5 things away from this, let this be one. The comment section is not another place for an essay or a statement, right? We're not going to be reading long comments. The comments is really just like, tell us something about the piece or the work or the materiality of the work that describes it. It's really about the specific. Some portfolio submissions have no comments, and that's totally fine, right? So it's anything about the physicality of the work or the way to view the work that is not able to be captured in those other fields, such as dimension and, the year you made it and the size. But it's also where you can say this was a collaborative work. Only you know your practice the best, okay? Trust yourself. We are a program that really wants to see what you're doing, who you are, what you're excited about, because we want to know how that work is going to come into the program. So don't base your portfolio edit on like what we think you're going to like, or what you see happening in the program because you came by the first year show or second year show. Like, just base it entirely on your own practice and your own interests, because even if you call us on the phone and you have really specific questions about like how to crop the work or how to shoot the work, we're not seeing that work. It's very hard to advise you on specifics about what to show and what to include when you're the one that knows the work and we're not looking at it. We unfortunately don't give portfolio advice. So we don't give portfolio advisement, or we can't look at a group of work and say, include this and don't include this. So that's also part of the challenge, is you deciding what that is. So what we give you is guidelines. A lot of times I think people get very nervous in our process and they worry that if they don't follow the guidelines exactly, that they're going to disqualify themselves. But we're very chill. We're people. We're really very excited about everyone's work and what they're doing, and just really the time I spend with the faculty, Sara and I, like, facilitating all these reviews, and it's the amount of time that our faculty are just so excited about what they're seeing and what you're doing. Trust me, trust yourself, and just edit well. Please don't put composite images. That's another big no-no for us. That's where you take one of the images and you put like 5 or 6 images in it. Don't do that. You can show views or details, just 1 or 2 can come into the fold, but Sometimes we will look at portfolios and we're faculty or the committee is really into it. And then we get to the end and we realize that we actually just only really saw like 3 or 4 pieces. So you want to take that number of images in the portfolio that we ask for, whether it's 16 or 20, and really show us individual works for those as much as you can. Again, with something like large sculpture or something, you can have some detail, but you want to just really use those guidelines. And if you're working in book design, layout, editorial, things like that for say GD, just pick the strongest layout. You know, don't feel like you need to show us an image that has 20 different layouts. It's very hard to see what you're doing if that's the case. And it's not really hacking the system. It's just giving the faculty the work in a way that they don't really like to view it. All right, so we're going to come back to this, but for now, I'm going to introduce Nick Rendon, who is our colleague in financial aid. So this is Nick's first year. We're going to work really closely together on all the admission and financial aid packaging we'll do for those of you who end up getting in. And Nick's going to tell you a bit about the financial aid process and the resources available here at Yale.
Awesome.
And Nick,
Thank you,
I'm
Taryn.
going to advance the slide. So you just tell me when you're ready, okay?
Sounds good. Awesome.
Okay.
So yeah, welcome everyone, and thank you for your interest in the School of Art. As Taryn said, my name is Nick Rendon. I'm the financial aid director here at the school. So we're going to ask that everyone hold off on their financial aid questions until the end of the open house. I'll also be addressing some of the most frequently asked questions our office receives later on in the presentation, so stay tuned for those. So before we explore the financial aid application process in detail, I'd really like to begin with an overview of the cost of attendance, as understanding the full scope of expenses will provide important context for how financial aid can help make your education here more affordable and accessible. Next. All right, so let's first go over direct and indirect costs for attending the School of Art. So direct costs are billed directly by Yale and include tuition and enrollment in the Yale Student Health Plan, which provides students with year-round health coverage. So Yale bills students for direct costs on a per semester basis through Yale Pay, which is our student accounting system. Now on the right side, you see the indirect costs here that are not billed by the university, but are essential to consider as a part of your education. These include housing and meals, materials and supplies, personal expenses, and transportation. Next, please. So here's a breakdown of the cost of attendance for the School of Art for the current academic year. So the direct costs that students will be billed for are tuition, which is $48,500, and then the Yale health insurance, which is $3,422. Students will also need to budget for the indirect out-of-pocket costs like housing and meals, course materials, supplies, personal expenses, and transportation. These indirect costs are estimated averages we expect students to spend over the 9-month academic year. And then altogether, the total cost of attendance for the current year is $77,192. So there are multiple resources available to help support students' education at the School of Art, including financial aid in the form of scholarships. We'll touch more on scholarships later. The Yale Payment Plan, which is an interest-free 5-month per semester plan for a small enrollment fee. Student loans available to both domestic and international students. So domestic students may borrow federal and/or private loans. And then international students may borrow a Yale student loan and/or private student loans. And then generally, repayment for all of these loans can be deferred until after graduation. Next, we have student employment opportunities, which are offered within the school and cover a wide variety of needs. It's not necessary to qualify for financial aid in order to hold any of these positions, and students are paid directly for these positions and often use these earnings to offset those indirect costs that we just went over. Next, we have outside scholarships from organizations outside of Yale that are mostly merit-based, but some do require some financial aid eligibility. And students apply for these outside scholarships through these outside organizations and not through Yale. And then finally, we have fellowships that students can apply for, a funded opportunity to teach, travel, or do residency. Next. All right, so at the School of Art, financial aid is awarded based on demonstrated financial need. So eligibility for need-based scholarships is determined through a review of both student and parent income and asset information. So as Taryn mentioned earlier, the school practices need-blind admissions, meaning the applicant's financial need is not taken into consideration for admission. So this approach really helps ensure that the school remains accessible to talented students from all financial backgrounds. So if you're admitted to the school and qualify for financial aid, your award letter will include a need-based scholarship along with options for loan and work study opportunities. And then the financial aid application deadline for prospective students is March 1st, 2026. Next. All right, so how to apply for financial aid? Let's walk through the application process. So to actually apply for financial aid, all applicants must complete the CSS profile with both their and their parents' financial information. If your parents are separated, each parent must submit their own CSS profile. Domestic applicants are also required to submit the FAFSA application. And then keep in mind that your financial aid application for the 2026-27 academic year will be based on your and your parents' 2024 income and current assets at the time of filing. So really make sure that you gather all of the appropriate documentation and information in advance of starting your applicable applications. Next slide. So now that we've gone over the financial aid application process, let's go over some common mistakes to avoid. So the first is skipping the financial aid application. So even if you're unsure if you'll qualify for financial aid, it's still important to apply because skipping out on an application means missing out on potential aid. Missing deadlines. So stay organized and keep track of key dates like the March 1st financial aid application deadline. Make sure you gather all the necessary documents ahead of time to prevent delays and ensure smooth application processing. And then don't be afraid to ask for help. So please reach out to the financial aid office if you have any questions or concerns throughout your financial aid application. We're here to help you. Careless errors and not following instructions. So double check your application for accuracy and follow all instructions closely. So both the CSS profile and the FAFSA include helpful tips throughout the application. And finally, these applications can be detailed. So set aside enough time to complete them thoroughly. Expect about an hour for the CSS profile and around 30 minutes to complete the FAFSA. Next, please. So let's go over some frequently asked questions that the financial aid office receives from applicants. So the first is, the school offer financial aid to both domestic and international students? So yes, all students who apply for financial aid are eligible can receive financial aid in the form of a need-based scholarship and loan and work study opportunities. Does applying for financial aid impact my admissions application? No. So the school practices need-blind admissions, meaning students' ability to pay is not taken into consideration for admission. Is parent information required on my financial aid application? So parent information is required to be reported on your financial aid application. Parents' unwillingness to provide information and/or the student's age and marital status are not conditions for which the school considers a waiver of parental information. So if you feel like you have extenuating circumstances for which your parents' information should be waived, please include a comment in the special circumstances section of your CSS profile. Does the School of Art offer merit scholarships? So no, all of the school's scholarships are need-based, and the school offers a need-based art scholarship to admitted students who have demonstrated financial need. For the current academic year, about 80% of our current art students receive a need-based art scholarship, and the average scholarship amount for those students was around $42,000. Is funding for the school available for indirect costs? So while scholarships from the school are not available for indirect costs, students may pursue loan and work study opportunities to offset their indirect costs, such as housing, meals, and course materials and supplies. And then finally, do I need to reapply for financial aid annually? So yes, so returning students are required to reapply for financial aid annually by April 30th. And generally, returning students on financial aid can expect to have their scholarships renewed annually, assuming there's no major changes in your and/or your family's financial situation. And next slide. And finally, don't hesitate to reach out to our office. We're here to answer any financial aid questions you have. The best way to get a hold of us is via email at ART financial aid, all one word, at yale.edu. And again, friendly reminder, the deadline to apply for financial aid is March 1st. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. That was great. A note about the March 1 deadline, which is that you will know if you're interviewing by March 1. You probably will not have your final decision. So please do submit those applications, and we probably are going to be doing final notifications on or about March 3rd through the 5th. So March 1st falls before that, unfortunately, to make sure that you are on time with that. And then I also just want to ask Sara to wave hello. Sara Cronquist is our senior admin and admission counselor. Sara answers all of our emails in the inbox. And also the two of us kind of run admission and admin for the School of Art MFA programs, as well as the Yale Norfolk summer programs. A couple of things I want to note, which are that if you really want to visit and see studios and work and all of that, there are a few key times to do that. And one is our Open Studios event, which happens every year in April. This year, it's on I believe it's the 10th and 11th. I have the dates later in the presentation. So Open Studios is a weekend where almost all of our students have their studios open and available to the public to come in and talk to them and look at their work, as well as our exhibitions are an opportunity to visit as well. We currently have our first year group show up. The opening was last Friday, so I did see some prospective students come in. I talked to some of you that day. It's great to see you guys. And then beginning in January, end of January, we'll begin our whole cycle of thesis exhibitions. So for this current year, we have 2 painting thesis exhibitions, then 2 sculpture shows, and then 1 graphic design show and 1 photo show. So moving back into the program information, where I'm going to get a little bit more detailed about preparing your portfolio for these areas. As I mentioned, we have the 4 areas of study: graphic design, painting and printmaking, photography, and sculpture. And those are within those disciplines. We also have some all school activities. So certain classes that everybody takes in the first year. And we have other interdisciplinary or interdepartmental, as we call it, ways that you can engage, whether interdepartmental crit, or we have actually stopped having any core classes or crits on Wednesdays, basically so that all of our students are free to take part in interdepartmental activities and workshops and town halls and things like that. So we'll talk a little bit about that too at the end briefly. But yes, that's the interdisciplinary. So there's some academic requirements that all of our students do. We're a pretty structured MFA program, okay? So I do want to start by emphasizing that. We have a lot of requirements for a grad program. So it's very structured in the sense of each semester that you're here, our students take like 6 credits a semester of individual criticism, which is like studio visits and all of the different one-on-one critiques and meetings that you'll have with faculty and visiting critics. That is a big part of the curriculum, but then there's a lot of classes in core crits or core studio classes you have to take as well. So there are not a great many electives in our program. So I think this is a big question to ask yourself if you're looking at MFA programs. They're all very different. Some are much more self-directed. Some graduate programs function more like residency, where you're just like making work in residence and having studio visits. So we are not that way. I think the most successful students here at Yale are people that like really are ready to be back in an academic setting where they're like taking classes and having to be at class and really participating in seminar and group discourse, etc. So please know that about it. And most of our programs are 2 years. We do have one of the smaller graphic design programs that's 3, but in the course of your time in the program, you'll complete at least 60 units to earn your MFA. And between 42 and 48 of these credits are taken in your area of study. So that's how many are required. And so then the balance of that, we can do that math, between 12 and 18 credits would be in elective coursework. And that's not a lot when you spread it out over, 4 semesters. So we do currently have a requirement where you have to take at least one class outside of the School of Art. So anywhere within the university. However, we're the only GNP that still requires this. So, that may or may not change, but for right now, that is the case. So you do get some, obviously, elective choice as to what courses you take to fulfill certain requirements. But I think the biggest takeaway is in the scope of graduate programs in art, we're very structured. So as far as the kind of core pedagogy that stretches across all of our disciplines, every program has like a core faculty group. So a full-time group of faculty that are here all the time that really structure out the curriculum and the academic program. There's a structure of visiting critics and core critics who come through. We have visitors. A visiting critic and like a visiting artist are a little bit different. A visiting critic might be someone who's here for just a year as like a regular sort of voice and presence within the work you're doing. And then a visiting artist might come for a lecture, but they'll do studio visits, and you can participate in a lottery to meet with someone in that specific instance. All of our first year students take critical professional practices, which is a first year seminar course. We have 4 different sections. They're thematic. We tell you what they are before you come in, and you kind of rank the choices and you get put in those. But you'll be in that class and that's your first semester, first year. So you'll be in that class with students from all 4 disciplines, which is a really important part of the sort of grounding of the first year. Painting, photo, and sculpture programs all have a schedule of weekly crit. Those all happen on Tuesdays. And for the most part, they're closed to the public or to people who are not part of the faculty panel or the students in the class. And then toward the end of the semester, we have final reviews. The graphic design program has a core studio every week as well. And that's by year level. So first year, second year, prelim. And so that seminar class may some weeks be critique. It may be desk visits with different faculty and visitors. Or it could be project-based as well. So the Visiting Artist Lecture Series, each program has funding to bring in guest lecturers to do a presentation of the work that they're doing and their trajectory within their practice. And as I mentioned, those individuals will usually take some studio visits. The weekly interdepartmental engagements are great. This is a newer thing. We've been doing this over the last 3 or 4 years as a way to kind of break down those silos between the different disciplines. And we have now every semester an interdepartmental crit class that you can join as well if you're interested in not just working with students from other disciplines, but also faculty from some of the core faculty from the programs. And then all of the study, no matter which program you're in, cultivates in a thesis, either exhibition or book, and a thesis review. For community and exhibition and community, these are both really important parts of our culture here at the Yale School of Art. Most of our MFA students will participate in at least 3 group exhibitions in our gallery. So in the fall semester, we host an annual first year group show and a second year cohort group show. We also have an undergrad group show. And then in the spring, we have our thesis classes as well. So thesis exhibitions running throughout the spring semester. And you can check on the calendar on our website, and you can always come to the opening reception. The opening receptions are open to the public, and we welcome you to visit at that point if you want. Or as I mentioned, Open Studios in April is a great time as well. The thing I really like about having prospective students come at Open Studios is that it is after the notification deadline of admission, but it's before the deadline to decide if you're enrolling. So it's a really nice time to be able to come and experience the school and chat with our students and while you're making your decision about your enrollment. And we know that many of you who apply and get in are going to have a lot of options as far as the different schools you get in. And there's really no best school for everybody. It's really about like what you're looking for, what each individual program is going to be able to provide you pedagogically, research wise, so really thinking about this as you put together your list of where you're going to apply and where your interest really lies. We currently, as I just mentioned, have our first year group show up, and it's so great. I went to the opening on Friday. It's so wonderful to just like see that group that we worked so hard to decide on and bring in together just a couple months into this experience and see the work they're doing. One of the things I love about the first year group show, and I may have told some of you that were visiting last week this, but I love the way that it shows us, like it shows everybody in the community that actually what we're doing in admission is we're really selecting students to come in who have a lot of space to grow and to make work and to expand their practices. We are not actually looking for the absolute most polished practices when we do admission. The contrary, if you have a really, really solid, polished practice that's like you're represented by a gallery, you're showing all over, you have collectors, often that is going to be a closed practice. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to work with you and get you to kind of break that down and reconsider what you're doing. So there's this, I think, really, we try to really optimize the point where people are in their practice where there's so much going on and they're really excited about what they're doing, but there's still a lot of room for refining it and bringing it to a place of more resolution, right? So the first year show is really exciting for that because it just shows people's experimentation and just where they're sort of jumping off from within this experience. And the first couple images are from the first year show that's up right now. So you see a little bit of range of that, but the galleries are, we currently have, as of last year, a gallery manager. We didn't before. It was always like an effort of different faculty, but now we have like a very professional person who's maintains the spaces, who curates the shows, who works with, preparators and installers. And so the quality of our exhibitions has really, really been elevated by this. We also, as a school, now have our Dean, Kim Pinder, has started a gallery in New Haven, which is dedicated all to local artists, not people in the MFA program, but as a place for local art makers and designers in New Haven to have a place to exhibit that's tied to Yale, which has been a really exciting new adventure for us and for the school. This image, I think, that's from Open Studios. And this is also some images from Open Studios. Both things like exhibitions, thesis shows, Open Studios, they're such great examples of the community and what it's like to be here, the experimentation that's happening, and really the excitement of being able to like go behind the curtain and see how people make their work and how they collaborate, and whether that's like making food for the community and each other, or putting on, at Open Studios, our students have the opportunity to like put on public talks or propose bringing a speaker or doing a symposium. So that's a really exciting time for us, and we really do welcome you in at that point. All right, so in our graphic design program, but the graphic design program has two different tracks. So we have a prelim track and a 2-year track. And the nature of the work in this area, let's start with prelim. So this is a single preparatory year of study, really for people who do not have a formal undergraduate training in design. So it's really going to give you a register of visual language, type design, fundamental tenets of graphic design, and design language to get you prepared to go into the MFA program. So this is a really small program. We bring in 6 or 7 students a year as prelims. Personally, I think our prelims are some of our best, most exciting students by the time they leave, not just because they've been here for 3 years, but because they come from usually other visual or like writing-based lineages as far as their training coming in. And the work you're going to see as we go through the examples here are from students in both areas. The 2-year program, so for those who leave get through the prelim, or just anybody coming in as an MFA student, is a core studio program. It's based on the conceptual design development really in a diverse range of media. Typography is a really big and important focus of our program. Print work, interactive work, web, video, spatial design. We have an exhibition design class, and it's punctuated all of this by academic study in the art school and also research within the wider university. The graphic design program, I think that it is one where our students really put together a diverse body of work. We have students working in many different disciplines. The work is really runs the range of different types of influences, historic references. We have students in the graphic design program that are like dancers that are working in sculpture in the shop. So everybody's work is really very different, but a diverse body of coherent work that demonstrates an individual working methodology, and working with some of the lead designers as faculty to kind of hone that language, but also to bring in various, the range of disciplines and sort of ways of making and form that they're interested in. The graphic design faculty, as we go through the faculties, you'll see we have a core faculty of full-time people each year. And then, as I mentioned, a structure of like visitors or adjunct faculty as well. So Nancy is the current director of the graphic design program. She's in her third or fourth year of her leadership. And then we have many different individuals that are also teaching, whether it's undergrad classes or grad classes, or doing desk crits or one-on-one development with our grads. And we'll just show you some images here of work so you can just kind of get a sense of the vibe and the activity within the program. All of the work you're going to be doing, development of a cohesive investigative body of work, it's really going to culminate in your thesis. And that's true of every program. But the graphic design thesis is conceived as a loose framework within each student's visual method, deployed across the different projects that they're doing in the course of study. And while every one of our thesis projects is unique, the features that like connect them are just like a focus on methodology, the application of a visual method of studio work, organization of that work, and argued with a written document through the thesis book. I love going to the Haas and looking at thesis books and publications from previous year students. It's so exciting. We do keep a copy of every one of those publications in our archive. And if you do decide to visit Yale or really think seriously about enrolling in the program, contact us so we can tell you about how to see about doing some research in that way and seeing some of these things. I think like the individual collection of graphic design work by each student is supported on several levels simultaneously. Like studio work is led by faculty meetings that happen weekly. We have small 6-person thesis groups meetings. So the graduating class is 18. So there's 3 groups that work specifically with faculty that are assigned to it. And we have a writing requirement now that happens in the graphic design program. So the portfolio guidance for this area is to put together a collection of visual work that can be comprised of professional work you've done, so freelance work, or if you work for a company, if you're an in-house designer, you can have some of that as well, but just how you're experimenting, self-initiated work that demonstrates your experience, skills, and passion in graphic design and related disciplines. Of particular interest, though, is your personally driven work, and work that sort of like challenges the norms of conventional professional practice. So although you can put some professional work in the portfolio, we really want to see the work that's like your idea and how you're pushing it and exploring design. Now, the prelim application, that does not necessarily need to have any formal graphic design in it. We see all different types of other art disciplines come through the prelim application. We'd like to see how it relates, to a design practice, like where those pieces of what you're doing kind of come together to show an interest in and dedication to design. But ultimately, we've had people, we have applicants that show like printmaking, or they've gone to school for architecture, they're a journalism student, and they're beginning to explore design within sort of like their layout or editorial work. So it really is a range. Illustration is one, too, where we see people coming into prelim too. So then painting and printmaking is the next program we're going to do, like a high level overview of. We put our program mission statements here. These are available on the website, but just to summarize, the painting program aims to situate the discourse of painting and printmaking within a broader within a broader and global history of aesthetics, encouraging students to question, explore, and exploit the conventions that define any one medium and how all mediums are interrelated. So there is a strong format of weekly crit, and one-to-one studio visits, as well as a range of classes that also involve theory, to really ask the students to question the work they're doing, like where it sits within the history of painting and fine art. And there are a great many ways in which you can expand the research you're doing to kind of funnel into the work through the range of resources and libraries that we have here. And of course, all of our programs have a pretty rich history within the discipline as far as our alumni and our previous faculty who have been here. Emphasis for painting is placed on analyzing the relationships between form and content, practice and theory, the research, and the mention, and embodied experiences. So we work diligently to support how artists contextualize that practice socially, politically, within their lived experience, and creating a space for their intervention within that discourse. These are images of students in their studio, where they're really exploring the work as we go through. The painting and printmaking faculty is led by Meleko Magosi, who is our current director. And in this program, we have some of the more longstanding faculty that have been here for a while. Anoka Faruqi, one of our tenured faculty in painting. And these are all the full-time faculty for this year. This was the graduating class from 2 years ago. And then the current academic year painting and printmaking faculty that are either adjunct or visiting critics or core critics are listed here. So really a range of people working in different disciplines. We definitely have such an interest in all of the different forms of art making, how they interconnect. These are examples of painting work, and we bring in 18 students a year into this program. The instruction in the program is rooted in that investigation, as I was talking about, as a unique genre within its own complex syntax. And within the setting, the program encourages diversity of practice. They really encourage experimenting and innovating within what is even painting and what is the discipline defined as. Let's see, here we have all of our students in this discipline work in individual studios. They're about 300 to 400 square feet in the Crown Street building. So all the studios for painting are in the same place. The print shop is in the lower level, and printmaking is a focus of the curriculum. I would say that every year we have about maybe 3, maybe 4 students that come in the cohort who are very strongly focused in printmaking, and the rest are more printmaking and other painting and other disciplines. But we've had students coming into the program that are making video and sculpture, and you'll see evidence of that as we move through some of these images. And these are just a few. So if you go onto the art.yale.edu website, you can actually look at gallery shows, examples of previous thesis exhibitions, and you can see a lot of work. Obviously, our alumni speak for themselves as far as the work they're doing. But yeah, this will give you some context. But that being said, everything that already has happened in the program, we're always open to new things and more experimentation. The portfolio guidelines for painting are 16 images. They have a little bit of a smaller selection. They really want to see at least half of that work, at least 8 examples, be work that's been made in the last 12 months. So only a year old. The admission committee really is paying attention to the scale, the tactility of the work. That's why they want you to photograph it where they see all the edges. The 3-dimensional works should also show surrounding space and context. Details are not that necessary. You can have one or two, as I mentioned, but don't overdo it with the details. So limit just like one example if it's deemed absolutely essential to show that. This is an example of seeing like a cropped image versus like the painting on the wall. And I think this is important just to show that you can really see that this is an object that's in space. Maybe you can't, I can from my view, but same with this, like this just gives such a better idea of like how you would interact with this piece. And then this is, I think, a good example of a necessary detail. Like you can't see the level of detail as well here as you can here, but this would be the only one I would say to put in, just one. And a couple of other things about the painting portfolio, which is that the painting is the one program that asks you to talk about your what is the word they use, Sarah? So your representative image. So in your portfolio, Slate, the system we use, has a default where you can like highlight one image as the representative image. Essentially what it is like the cover of your application, but painting actually wants you to touch on that piece. So instead of going into depth on all the works in the statement, they want you to unpack one just sort of briefly. Okay, so moving into photo, I'm going to try to go a little faster since we're past our time. The photo program is photo and sculpture. The next two we're going to talk about, we bring in 10 students a year. So they're smaller programs than GD and painting. And photo fosters a critical environment that supports and challenges each MFA student to develop and build upon their individual visual language, to express their unique view of the world made through the discipline of lens-based photography, or as Gregory Crutzen likes to call it, picture making. The pedagogy is based on a structure of practice and production, coursework, critiques, engagement with faculty and critics and curators. And this is so true. In photography, there is a there's a 5-week rotation. So you show your work 3 times in crit each semester, which is a lot. That's way more than any of the other programs that we have here. And there is a tradition of documentary photography. And we are looking for individuals who are like pretty dedicated to the medium in terms of like, you're not just working digitally, you're making prints. You've worked in a darkroom ideally. And I would say that not every student coming in has a lot of deep. Most have darkroom experience, but we know that programs have done away with this and stuff in the past, but you will get it when you come here if you don't already have it. So, but really looking at the print as like a physical object, defining principles and practices of Yale Photo's earlier years, and really looking at what the medium is doing. We're so oversaturated with photography and the culture, the screens, like social media, all these things, like everyone thinks they're a photographer. So it's really drilling down to like, how are you making your work? What tools are you using? What's your subject? What are you really interested in? And how does like your lens sort of break that subject open to discourse and discussion or commentary? The photo faculty are listed here. So Gregory Crutzen is our director, Lisa Krezi. As we go down, we also have some faculty on leave right now, like sabbatical. So that was another reason we decided to sort of skip the year of the faculty panel. But again, we're going to give you the link to last year, and it's so good. And I really would encourage you to watch it so that you can get some advice directly from them about making your selections for your portfolio. And then these were the full-time faculty, and these are the other faculty. Okay, and then these are some examples of student work, which again, as I keep saying, for all the programs really range. Terms of the focus, this is Darby Rautenberg's work. This is Sydney King, Garcia. These are all images too, I want to point out, from the thesis shows. So you're going to see these images are going to be work that's been pretty well developed over the course of the curriculum. And that's, again, a big differentiation between, say, like the first year show and the thesis shows. So for the portfolio guidelines for photo, you want to show us 20 images and or videos or moving image files that demonstrate your current themes, the subjects of your interest, as well as your technical approach to picture making. tell us what you're shooting on. That's like the first question they ask you in your interview. Like, what camera are you using? What equipment are you using? Are you printing the work, etc. So this also significant portion of the portfolio should be work that's been made within the last 12 months. And then lastly, moving into sculpture, the sculpture program is also one that is 10 students. And we have here within our facilities, we have a wood shop, a metal shop. We have only started to scratch the surface as far as digital fab. We do have a CNC router right now. We don't have an extensive digital fab shop. We don't have a foundry right now. That is something our shop managers would love to change. We do not have a ceramic studio. So this is something like you're going to want to look at when you're considering which MFA program you're applying to, is the facilities, and this is particularly the case in sculpture, how you're going to be able to produce the work that you make, the fabrication of it. So I think like incoming cohorts in sculpture have like a real range of fabrication experience and interest. The program recognizes that contemporary practice of sculpture is difficult to define by medium, process, or conceptual underpinnings. So there's not a lot of rigid definition when working with our grad students. Some are doing performance, some are making objects, some are doing installation, some are doing video. It really is a range. And I think like, even if you look at the work of our core faculty, like Aki Sasimoto and Martin Purcell are essentially, performance artists. They make objects, they make sculpture, but the performance is so important in their practices. And I think that's a kind of really special feature. These are images of the sculpture studios. The sculpture studios are huge. They're very big, well lit. They're the biggest of all the program studio spaces. This is our faculty. Sorry, I'm really trying to rush through this. These are some thesis shows from the past few years here. Baxter. So the portfolio guidelines for sculpture are 20 still images or time-based files that demonstrate your current work, again, and your technical approach to construction and fabrication. So one of the things they're going to ask you in your interview is like about how you fabricate and how you make your work. Okay, that's important to them. We also want to really know that the students we're bringing in know how to do this and have the technical ability to do it, right? So our shops have monitors and directors and managers, but they're not really there to produce your work for you. They're there to support the work you're making with the knowledge you have. And of course, you may be able to expand that knowledge technically when you're here, but we do expect that our students come in with the ability to be, fabricating the work that they're most interested in making to start out. So your images and time-based files should demonstrate that work, the technical approach you take. Your three-dimensional work should show the surrounding space and context. Aki Sasimoto always says every sculpture has a front. So she's like, locate the front, shoot the front. That's up to you to interpret, but detail shots may be included to show alternative views, but again, limit those to 3. So in painting, you're gonna limit to 1, and sculpture, you're gonna limit to 3, right? So label each image. This is all on the website. The significant portion of the work should be recent, 12 to 18 months. These are this is Pop Soleil Falls, Giant Peanut, which was a thesis exhibition, incredible. He made this all out of cardboard boxes and paper bags. The range of work, the materials are just always so refreshing and different and changing. And we'd love to see that in the work you do as well. I mean, when we do admission for sculpture, it's so incredible seeing like all of the different mediums that people are working in and the materials they're working in, the scale, like one of our incoming students this year makes really teeny tiny work. And some students have been doing monumental sculpture. So such a range. So then I'm going to just skip through this interdisciplinary part because we really don't have a ton of time left. I'm so sorry I went over. I told you, I'm not good at editing myself. We do have a solid interdisciplinary faculty, people like Sarah Oppenheimer, who's teaching a prototype class next semester. Marta Kuzma, our former dean, who's a curator and teaches a lot of theory. Kim Pinder, our current dean, whose work focuses in public art and murals, a mural scholar. Leslie Dick, who's an incredible writer and critic, and A.L. Steiner, the photography and performance artist. Such a great group of individuals. And I'm going to kind of wrap it up there. We have so much information on either our website and in the Slate portal. Admission advisement by email or phone. You can contact us. Please do not contact our students and faculty via Instagram or whatever to try to get advice. They love being acknowledged by you, but they're busy, and we don't want you to get incorrect information. So please direct your questions to us. As far as preparing for the application, we don't really want to hear like, well, so-and-so told me this. If we're not telling it to you, it may not be true. And then you can, though, follow our student-run SOA accounts. Also, we're going to open the chat, so please get ready to put your questions in. And then we have the online archive of student exhibitions with 3D tours, and please feel free to come through for a thesis show of your choosing. Thank you so much. Sorry we went over. And don't forget to notate our admission deadline, which is January 10th at midnight Eastern Standard Time, and the financial aid deadline of March 1. You have questions for us, you can email Sarah at art.admissions@yale.edu. Please be patient with us as we get closer to the deadline. It might take us a little while to get back to you because most people save their questions at the very last minute. But we'd love your questions now, so feel free to get those to us. I am going to stop sharing my screen there, and we will open up the chat, and we'll take a minute to aggregate some of those questions. But let's see if we have any questions for Nick, because poor Nick has been sitting here for an hour and a half.
We do. We have questions for Nick. Hi, everybody.
Great.
I'm Sara Cronquist. I'm the senior admin for admissions and academic affairs, as Taryn has mentioned. She and I answer all the questions, so I do appreciate your patience. Nick, are you available for questions?
I am. Shoot away.
Sure. The first question is, what percentage of the total tuition could the outside scholarship provide? So there's questions about tuition and scholarships.
Yeah, great question. So generally, all financial aid from the school is considered need-based. So any outside funding that you're receiving is considered like a resource to help pay for your education here. There's really no general rule of thumb as to like an exact amount that would, start displacing any need-based aid that you receive from the school, because it is such a holistic review of your family's ability to pay. So yeah, it depends.
So there's a question regarding teaching and work study. So do work study opportunities include teaching?
Taryn, do you want to tackle that one?
Muted.
Yeah, I can answer that. Thanks, Sarah. So we do have TA-ships available for second-year students, and everybody is offered at least one. Everyone's offered one, basically. Sometimes people have two, but it's really just supporting a faculty member on teaching their class. It's not actually doing the teaching one-to-one with Yale undergrads. It's a true assistantship. All right. So this is really different from like a UC program where you might be offered a TA-ship as part of your tuition, where you're actually like teaching a lot of classes while you're in the program, and that compensation for that teaching is going to cover your tuition. We don't have that. So you might have just the one class in your second year. You would be offered at least the opportunity to do one class as an assistant. And those pay, we do have a graduate worker union, so those are union positions, and so the pay is negotiated through those labor relations, and it's roughly, depends on how many times the class meets a week and how long it meets for, but most of our undergrad classes are 2 times a week on non-consecutive days for 2 hours. And that level TA pays about like $3,300 for the semester. So it's not a ton of money for the TA, not like what you may see in other offers.
There is a question regarding what do you do if your folks are deceased, if your parents are deceased in terms of financial aid information, or if you are estranged, or if someone has not worked or does not work.
Yeah, so generally speaking, we do require all parents to contribute to their students' education here at the School of Art, unless there's extreme circumstances. So, as you mentioned, Sarah, parents being deceased, that would be a situation where we would consider the student independent for financial aid purposes. But we also realize that every student's relationship or lack thereof with their parents is different. So that's really where you can just elaborate on your relationship with your parents in the CSS profile. And then if we need additional information or clarification from you, we'll reach out at a later date.
Right.
There are a number of questions regarding application fee waivers. Taryn, Nick.
Yeah, we unfortunately don't have a structure to take fee waivers. We, yeah, we're because we're need blind, we're not looking at your need, and so we don't have that come into the process at all. It is a great amount of work to have each application go through the pipeline, so I know that it can really add up. But it is sort of an investment in the process of being considered.
Yeah, the CSS profile, which is required for all financial aid applicants, does have a small fee of 25 US dollars. There unfortunately is not a waiver for that. However, some of our peer institutions do require the CSS profile for their applicants for financial aid. And once you submit your CSS profile, you have the ability to send it to multiple schools.
That's true. Um, And someone also asked, I know, Sarah, you're supposed to be giving the questions, but I did see that someone asked about resources applied to alumni after graduation, and do we have networking mentorship platforms offered after graduation? I would say like we don't have like necessarily a formal mentorship program with alumni and current students. We've talked about doing that. We've kind of workshop that idea. It's a little bit harder because our alumni are all out there. They're busy. They're doing things. But we do have, obviously, we're a professional school. So a lot of what we're doing during the course of the curriculum is bringing those people in to give advice about their careers and about just different professional preparedness, resources and approaches. We've had different classes about, the art market or how to go out into either the design or art world as a professional. And so we achieve that through different like a range of like workshops or parts of classes or in the programs. Like I would say that it's pretty specific to the discipline also. Like a pricing your workshop might be really relevant in painting, but it's not going to be so applicable to graphic design or sculpture and like the way that we bring that specific person in to do it, if that makes sense. So we do achieve this in a range of ways. We also have a membership for an online platform called Creative Study, which you may have access to through your undergrad program, but it's sort of a third party entity that does a lot of programming online about different artist resources and support information, whether it's like writing your studio for taxes, if you're a freelance, or if you're running a studio, or how to deal with contracts from a gallery. And we may have either speakers come in to do that or refer you to, some of these places that we have purchased free memberships for our students.
I'm going to go with the next question that we have in our aggregated questions, which is I'm really interested in taking advantage of Yale's wider university ecosystem. How easy is it for students to engage with the professional schools like the law school? For example, if I wanted to study copyright and its role in the arts, would I have the opportunity to speak with professors and students at the law school? Um, so I can
Yeah,
answer a little bit of that,
sure.
and then Taryn can fill in the gaps. So some of the graduate and professional schools do allow students from across other professional schools to take courses. The law school is not one. So SOM, which is School of Management, and the law school do not allow outside students to take their classes. However, you can build professional relationships with students across the campus. It's really your networking, time and effort and skill. There are a lot of different resources on campus. Taryn?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. So as of now, you have to take at least one class outside of the school. But even if that requirement like gets like if we take that away, which I mean some of us would like to do only because it does end up pulling enrollment out of our own classes. And I think for a curriculum as big as ours, I mean, as structured as ours, we'd love to give our students like the more opportunity to take electives that they want. But as of now, we still have it. So either way, if we cease to have that requirement, you would still be able to take classes outside of the School of Art. And it's really up to those faculty to let you in. So during registration, we have a process of requesting a seat in a class and expressing your interest. And then each individual school or GNP or department has kind of like a hierarchy of how they admit students, how they manage demand, right? So for a undergrad class, you're going to have like majors in that area, and then undergrad students that need that requirement, and then grad students, and then with a grad class, kind of the opposite. So each individual faculty member can decide how they want to engage with students outside their discipline, but many of them do. They're very generous. Also, there's a huge circuit of like speakers and lectures and screenings and different ways to engage with other areas of study here at the university. But you are a School of Arts student if you come into our MFA program. And one other thing I want to mention that I didn't say at the beginning, which is critically important, is that we do have our own application as the School of Arts. So if you go on the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, which is commonly confused with us, you will go on and you won't see graphic design, photo, painting, and sculpture. You know you're in the wrong application. So make sure you go over to our application and apply to the right program.
In a similar vein, talking about academics, how heavy is the academic portion versus studio time? Is there a strong emphasis on written assignments throughout the semester? Go ahead.
That's a great question. So I'm trying to move us away from the term academic versus art, because I think that when you're here as an MFA student, your art is your academic work, your research is your practice, right? So the curriculum has a range of classes that are, or requirements that are either, production based, some are production based, but many are discourse based, so critique based. And then we also have seminars where you're doing reading assignments and you're having discussion within the classes. So that to some degree, that's up to you. That the programs all have their very set curriculum, but when you have that either 18 to 12, 12 to 18 elective credits within your discipline, that's just the minimum. That's to get to 60 units, right? So you can take more than that. We have students who take 18 credits a semester, in some cases more. And in those cases, they may be taking more seminar or more classes, or they may be looking for classes specifically where they don't have to write papers. It really depends on what you're looking for and what you want to learn. It's your education. So, but I would say it's impossible to go through our curriculum in that MFA program and not take at least one class where you're doing a lot of readings and writing papers, because that will happen in at least one instance of that class of that curriculum.
I guess there are a series of questions regarding transcripts and translation for international students. So we do ask that your transcripts be translated. You do not have to like make the equivalence for the grading system match. So it's okay for the standard grading system in your original transcript to be presented, but we do ask that it be translated. There are a number of services internationally that do translate transcripts. Do not spend the money on that until you know that you are getting an offer of admission. We don't need a final transcript. So you don't need an official stamped, documented, translated version until we ask for your final transcript if you're provided admission. So a lay translation of your transcript would be fine in the interim. There are other questions regarding um, courses, if I've gotten a low if I've gotten a low grade in a class or I have a single fail on my transcript, will that affect my eligibility? What is the GPA requirement? If I have a low GPA, is that going to really immediately
Yeah.
affect my eligibility?
Okay, let's talk about that. That's a great question. I would love to tell you the answer to that. We do not have a minimum GPA. We look at your transcript. What we're mainly looking for in your transcript is that you are a consistent student, that you are a student who will be successful in a structured academic program. I keep really going back to this structure thing. It's because it's very real. Um, it's a big change in your life to stop what you're doing, come back to school, and suddenly have to be at all these places that we're telling you need to be, So for people who've been out in the professional world, which is by and large what we're looking for, is essentially we're looking for people who have had a little time after undergrad when they're applying to grad school. It's not a hard and fast rule. We do admit some people straight out of undergrad. It does a little bit less frequent and a little more rare, but it does happen. Though that transition of being out of school and coming back can be difficult. So the transcript really kind of helps show us, and this has been tried and true, that those who have like a lot of questionable grades or a lot of withdrawals or fails and retaking classes, it's like those students tend to not find our framework and like our structure very good for them. They tend to not be as successful. So we are placing more emphasis on the transcript more as an indicator of how you might do within our structure, rather than we're looking for like the highest GPA or we're really scrutinizing your individual grades. Also, if you do have like a fail or withdraw or a C or a bad grade on your transcript or a few, we like look at what areas those are in. So if you're an artist who's like not the best in math or like, you wouldn't be the first. So don't vex about that too badly. Just yeah. But if your grades are not super strong, then you can always choose to address that within your statement with a sentence or two if you want to, especially if it was a little while ago. All right, let's take like one or two more.
Sure. There's a number of questions about portfolio, and there are a number of questions about letters of recommendation. I'm going to first address the letters of recommendation. I do think that the portfolio information is very explicit on the website, and you're also, if you have questions more in depth about portfolio, you can ask via email to me. Regarding letters of recommendation, our requirement is 3 letters of recommendation. Someone asked whether or not you will be penalized as the applicant if someone who you requested a letter from does not submit the letter of recommendation.
I'm
So,
sorry, so how do we view that if they don't?
yeah, are they going to be penalized? Is their application going to get thrown out because they didn't get their letter?
Not necessarily. Like if one is missing, we have had instances where we make a decision on a file if one letter is missing. But I would say like the way the application works is you put in the recommenders you want. The application sends an email to those people and says, hey, so and so has requested a recommendation. Here's the link. Submit your letter here. You have up until this day. The portal never closes, honestly, so people can do it after the deadline, but we do start reviewing right away. So you can see the status of the submission. So stay on top of that. If you ask someone to be your recommender and the deadline's passed and their letter is not in yet, you can bug them. Like, you can please send them a reminder. If they can't find the link, let us know. We can go in the system and resend the link or send them a reminder, but that doesn't happen automatically.
They can also send the reminder themselves via the system to the
Right.
person that they've entered.
That's right. That's
I
right.
will say be very careful when you are entering the email address for the person that you are requesting a recommendation from. If there is an issue, just email me or call me in the office. Letters of recommendation, there's a question about who to get letters from. My general advice regarding letters of recommendation is you want to choose people who can best speak about your practice, about you as a student, as an artist, your work, who you are as a community member, in an arts setting or in an academic setting. It does not have to hard line be a professor. So, for example, someone said, I've been out of school for 10 years. I don't have relationships with former professors. Who should I get my letters from? We've seen professional colleagues. We've seen letters from artists who you've worked for, maybe as a fabricator or an assistant, things like that. Someone who can speak to your work. You always want to ask someone to write a letter of recommendation who you feel is going to give you a good letter of recommendation. Um, in general, I do see technical issues with letters of recommendation come through when people wait until the last minute. So please get the request out early so that if your recommender does have a technical issue uploading their letter, then they can reach out directly to me and correct that. And that can happen before the application is reviewed. Um,
Where can we find the list of academic elective courses for each concentration? These are online. If you go to art.yale.edu/courses, you can see that. I would say that that within that, the sometimes the requirements do change year to year. Like right now, each area of study has a thesis class, which we didn't just 2 years ago, right? So those do ebb and flow a little bit. And the typical work week for an MFA painting student, you'd probably have like classes on 3 days of the week, but then one of the other 2 days you may have like the visiting artist lecture series where every few weeks somebody comes, or you have studio visits. It's a full-time program. I mean, I want to make that clear. It's full-time. It would be very difficult to have a full-time job at the same time. Someone asked a question about families. People have come with families, but it is a full-time program. We don't have a part-time option. Yeah.
So there are portfolio questions. When Taryn is referring to composite images, what we mean is if you've looked at a glossy magazine and you've seen like a cutout image of, an apple and then next to it a pear all like stacked together, that is a composite image. So if you are doing that with a number of paintings or graphic design pieces or sculptures, it makes it very, very difficult for our faculty reviewing your portfolio to see the work, to focus on one piece, to see even the tactility, how the work is made. So really, one portfolio image should be one piece. You can also do an installation shot if you feel like that gives a sense of your work better than just, a single image of the work on the wall. We see installation shots often with moving images. For instance, if you have still work in a gallery space with, something that's interactive, you're welcome to include it that way. People also do short videos of sculptures or short videos of book spreads. So think of like a copy stand table with your book spread, turning the pages. Note that our system does not host or like upload and host GIFs properly. The tech specs on the application portal say that they do play, they don't. So we can't figure out why, but just be aware of that. Videos, you can loop a video. So if you need to show something that's GIF-like or a looping video, do it that way. Someone asked if you'll be penalized by showing a triptych or a diptych. No, that is absolutely acceptable. Especially we see that often in photo. It gives a sense of the work. Those images or paintings might be meant to be seen in context with one another.
Someone asked, what is the admission committee looking for those who made it to the finals round from the previous year? Oh yeah, okay. So if you applied before and you got on the wait list or you were interviewed or whatever, you don't have to update your letters and your statement, but you should. I think you should. There can be some images of your portfolio that are the same, but when we know you've applied before, the faculty often ask to see the previous application. So we do look at that. So they like to see some change and some update to the portfolio and to the letters as well. But between applying and then being invited to interview, we're not going to ask you for additional letters. We may ask, like for painting, for instance, if you get invited to an interview, we ask you to prepare images of like your ideation and like the way that you sort of sketch and the way that you do process work, right? So that would be an addition that you'd have to prepare in addition to what you already sent us. But like for photo or sculpture, you can submit the same work. You can have the same work be looked at in your interview, or you can add new work. It's really up to you. If you're really struggling between like not fitting into a single category, as I mentioned in the presentation, I think the best way to decide which program is best for you is looking at like who the faculty are in the area of study, the alumni that have come out of it, like just like the lineage of the program and which one feels more related to what you're doing. Who do you want the feedback from? That's the main question, right? Like who do you want that weekly critique from? Who do you want to hear talk about that work and other peers' work? That's like the really critical decision maker in terms of like what discipline you're in. But I would say the biggest crossover we see is like painting and sculpture. And where does that work live? Does it live on a wall? If it lives on a wall, it's probably in the painting area. If you're working completely off the wall and you're using a fabrication job and you're doing those things, then you're probably sculpture. But there's a spectrum in there, and there could be things that don't fit one of those two boxes. Trust yourself, trust your interest in the program, and please, please, please apply to more than one program. Cast a wide net. It's very important. There's amazing programs out there, many of which are very well funded. And it's, don't just put all your eggs in one basket. We really do think it's best for you to explore the different programs that exist and really find the one that's best for you. Thanks, Sara. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Lindsey. All of you, really appreciate your time. I sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, I can't tell you how much we're looking forward to seeing your work come through the process. And we really hope that we'll be welcoming many of you here in the fall. So have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.